Good morning, everybody. I'm John Self. It's a little after 7:30 in the Central Time Zone. I'm in Tyler, Texas, right outside of Dallas. I'm a career coach, career strategist, and a interview coach, and I do a lot of speaking and I do a lot of coaching. So we're delighted to have you with us today. I have been. This is a dual broadcast. We're on YouTube and LinkedIn via Restream, which is our current restreaming service. We're probably going to be changing that this next week, so next Thursday morning should be exciting. I really enjoy these times, and if you have questions, just drop them in the chat. I'm happy to try to answer your questions. So let's get started today. A lot of things going on in the marketplace. It's interesting. One of the most challenging ways to find a job today is to do it online. Now, it's the easiest way in terms of access, but it is not the easiest way in terms of success. As a matter of fact, that's probably the most challenging way to find a job. I really think that people are just so not into networking like they used to be, and so people are really focusing on applying online, including a lot of Gen Zs and millennials, because they're so used to using online mobile applications, that sort of thing. So let me tell you, you need to really think about the odds when you do that. Now, if you don't have a network, that's the way you have to go. But your odds are about 150 to 1 on average. It can be higher and lower, but that's the average. The best way to get a job, of course, is to network, because most of the jobs that are really worth having and that pay well are not listed. And that can be 60 to 70% of the total jobs out there. So, if you're not networking, we have some great free content at johngself.com, and we invite you to check that out at johngself.com and click the little red button on the side of the page. So, want to now talk a little bit about because it is so hard to get considered. Somebody called me the other day, one of my clients, and said, I broke free. I came through. I said, what do you mean? I'm going to be interviewed by a human being. They've been applying online, had applied 30 or 40 times and had, gotten rejection letters or no response, and no response is not uncommon. And it was really delighted. I said, well, what are you going to do to get prepared? And they said, well, I've read the job description and I've looked at their website and I feel like I'm ready to go. And I said, and so how many times have you interviewed in the last 5 years? And he said, well, this will be my first time. And I said, well, let me tell you one of the complaints that recruiters have, and it is the most common complaint from recruiters, and that is job applicants, they go through all this rigmarole of applying online and getting rejected and filling out these applications, and it can take 45 minutes to an hour in some cases, or longer, if you're not really computer proficient. And so then they show up for the interview, and they're not prepared. And that's really crazy. I mean, why would you work so hard to get to that point and go in and just say, well, I speak well and I know my subject matter. I'll just go in and answer their questions and hope for the best. Well, hope is a dumb strategy. Okay, it's nice to have, but that's not a strategy to get your job. So let's start off talking about the telephone interview. Now, some people think that's one of the most difficult parts of the interview process when it comes to interviewing. I would argue that the most difficult interviewing challenge is the resume review, which is done now by a machine. You're not there, the employer's not there, it's just algorithm code that's reviewing the resumes. And so, I think that's really tough. Your resume has always been your first interview, and it's the way you have to sell yourself. And so if your resume is not loaded with your value, if it's not specifically addressing the job description and they're using their keywords and phrases and industry keywords and phrases, you're not going to get past that first interview, and most people do not. Now, let's talk about the telephone interview. They are called screening interviews or get acquainted interviews, and they usually run anywhere from 20 to 40 minutes, sometimes a little bit longer. Now, one of the things you have to understand is that when recruiters, whether they're corporate or work in an agency or a search firm, they have pretty full days. And when they're in the middle of a search, they're probably doing multiple searches, 4 or 5. So if you feel like they're looking at maybe screening 30 or 40 candidates for those searches, that's a lot of people to interview. So they're on a tight schedule, so you need to be very, very prepared, very focused, and be respectful of their time. Now, so there's not a lot of time for, some are pretty good at building quick rapport through a little quick chit chat, a little social talk, and then get right to it. The telephone interview is it is a get acquainted interview, but it is an interview, and you have to be on your guard. So here's what I suggest. Number one, look at the website. Really go through that and say, okay, what questions do you have about this company? Look at the job description. What questions do you have about the job description? Now, most companies still idiotically do not post a salary range, although some states like Colorado and California, New York, they now require companies to post anything that's being advertised. So that internet is considered advertisement. So you're required to post the range. If they haven't posted the range, as you get toward the end of the interview, just say, could you share with me the range so that we don't end up wasting each other's time. And if they don't want to give you the range, that may be that they've already decided they don't want to advance you. But if they say, well, we'll talk about that later in a subsequent interview, you got to be careful, because anytime you start looking at another job, especially if it's a competitor, especially if it's across the city, in the city, you have to be extremely careful. So you do not want to put your current position in jeopardy by pursuing a job that turns out you're not going to be paid what you're currently paid. And I've seen that happen dozens and dozens of times. People can, executives, they don't want to be pushy. They don't want to ask too many. They don't want to be off-putting to the client because, they might want the job and they don't want to make them angry. Look, if that person gets angry because you ask the salary range after you've had what you thought was a good screening interview, then that's probably a company you do not want to work for. That's hard when you're out of work and you need a job. Okay, I get that. And so you may just have to, bite your tongue and go with the flow and move on and let them have that level of control. But, if they're approaching you, you're a passive candidate, you're not looking, you're not even sure you're interested, don't waste your time, ask that. But in this telephone interview, here's some tips. Number one, look at the LinkedIn profile of the person who's going to be doing the interview. 2, print a picture of that person, and wherever you're going to be sitting, and I would suggest it would be not on a sofa, but in a more upright chair or at your home office, not a chair in which you will become too comfortable. One of the applicants I know who came to me for some advice, he had a telephone interview, and his wife sent me a photo of him doing the interview, and he was sitting in his recliner with his, with workout shirts and one of these sleeveless holy shirts. He'd been out, running or something, and had a bottle of water. And I asked later, I said, how did it go? Well, I'm not sure it really went well. I had trouble connecting. And I thought, no kidding. So dress for the interview like you're going to the office. And it may be just business casual. It may be whatever you might wear, but dress for the interview. No house coats, no pajamas, no workout clothes. Get ready, because that carries over into your subconscious, and it does affect the quality of the conversation. Number 2, talk to the picture that you printed of that recruiter. Don't talk to the phone. Talk to that picture, because that's a trick. It's a way that your mind begins to kind of think, okay, I'm talking to an individual, and it helps you get focused, and it helps you rephrase the tone is sometimes different. It's sometimes more upbeat. It's sometimes more engaging. Recruiters are looking for people that know the subject, but are also friendly and trustworthy. And so you've got to start building that friendliness, that friendly connection, and that trustworthy connection early in the process, and that would be an initial telephone interview. And that's what a lot of recruiters still use initially. You want to have notes ready, and you can be a little bit more flexible with the notes. We'll talk about the video interview in just a minute, but you want to have your notes ready. We have something called a core and categorical interview worksheet. People talk about the STAR technique and all that. Mine is really based on every job has 4, 5, or 6 categories to it, from maybe governance all the way through financial administration. And so in each category, you list your strengths, the strengths that are most relevant to the job you're pursuing. The second thing you do is you think about your successes, the successes that are most relevant to the job that you are pursuing. The third thing, now, if you have a great success that may be a little bit one-off from what they're looking for, that's great. Still bring that up, but you want to be sure that you focus on the successes that really relate to the job that they're interviewing for. And some people want to argue with that approach and say, well, no, you need to tell them but no, they're listening for certain things. And if you don't give it to them, you may be the greatest thing since sliced bread. But if your computer, their scanning computer doesn't see it, you're not even going to get this telephone interview. And if they don't hear it in the screening interview, you're dead in the water. You're not going any further. So the next thing you want to do is in that form is think about, okay, in my career, have I ever really just done something that was really, really bad, and you were really uptight about it? That's all of us. We all have gone through that. And so what you want to do is think about that and go through, and write an answer. Every problem, every mistake, there's a reason it happened, and you want to put the best spin on it, yes, but have it ready. And a lot of people get nervous because their questions, they don't know what questions are going to be asked, and they all have one or two of these negative questions out there lurking in the background, and they get a little bit uptight. You've got to be self-aware. You've got to be confident. So have answers for any of the negative issues that you have in your career. And that's not uncommon to have negative issues, okay? People working 40, 50 years, stuff happens. Okay, the next thing you want to do is think about, okay, what are questions that I would ask me if I were looking for this job? If I were interviewing for it, what questions could we ask? Thanks, Mike. One of my clients said, I've used the core and categorical form, and it's been very helpful. Thank you for putting that together for us. Well, you're welcome, Mike. And boy, he is one of the bright people out there, and I'm really confident he's gonna land a great job soon. But it's a very functional chart. So you have, in most jobs, you have human resources. Okay, you have employees that work for you. You supervise people. That's HR. Then you have financial responsibility. You have a budget. Did you meet your budget? Were you efficient in using the resources provided by the company? In each category now, be sure you go through the litany. And the form, the core and categorical form, has all those issues defined. If you have marketing or if you have governance, sometimes governance is not reporting to a board. Sometimes it's the relationship with your boss, and that's important. Why? Because again, companies want to hire people who know what they're doing and are trustworthy. And if you have an example from your governance relationship about how you and your boss work together, how you reported to your boss, how you took care of that relationship, that could be very helpful. So the form is designed to be printed out and filled in for every time you do a big interview. Now, if you do several interviews for a certain position, you don't have to do it every time, but you do want to look it over and think, okay, the first time I talked to an HR recruiter, this person is the hiring authority. I may be asked a few new questions, so you might want to go over and look at the form again through that context, okay? But this works for telephone interviews. It really works for video interviews and face-to-face interviews, okay? So that's a tool you can use to help you get prepared. Again, interviewing is the most unique form of communication, and most people only do it about 25 or 30 times, maybe 40 in their entire career. Over 50 years, 50 times is not a lot of that's not a lot of practice. So one of the things we do for people, and Mike and I will probably be doing another one again soon if he feels it's beneficial, is a mock interview, and where I go through. And I've been teaching interviewing courses for a large global professional association for many, many years. And, mock interviews are very helpful because it gives you, somebody else gives you the immediate feedback. A lot of candidates, they don't get selected, they get really frustrated, and they want feedback. And most of the time where they've fallen out is been in the interview process. But we provide a mock interview product that allows you to get that feedback. And I've interviewed thousands of people all over the world, and before I got into healthcare, which was my original career, I was in the news business, so I ask a lot of people a lot of questions in the news business. So anyway, that is the telephone interview. You want to be focused. Absolutely be focused. Be listen very carefully. You want to listen to their questions, and you want to stay focused. Again, that core and categorical form can help you be focused. Okay, you must understand your value, because you're always going to be asked, tell me a little bit about yourself. And that question is not about going through your resume. Okay, they don't want to walk you through the resume because that can take forever. They want to know why they should hire you. And so just give them a brief biography of yourself and your values. What do you believe in? That's what they're looking for. If you have a couple of job examples in that 90-second or 60-second response, okay, great. But you've got to understand your value. So when they ask you, tell me about yourself, be sure that you say, well, I'm someone who does this, this, and this. I am passionate about this. My values as a manager, as a leader, are blah, blah, blah. And using that technique, I have found that putting my employees first has always helped me exceed my performance expectations. If that's the case. I mean, that's kind of what they're looking for. A really well prepared, well rehearsed, but something that not something that you start throwing back with memory. Usually when you start throwing out memory, unless you're an actor or a TV personality or a radio person, your voice goes flat, okay? So don't memorize it, learn it, okay? And you're always going to be asked that. So not sitting in front of somebody either on the telephone or in a video or in their office trying to come up with an answer to that question at that moment is beyond ridiculous, okay? You need to absolutely plan in advance, rehearse. So telephone interview, talk to the picture, know the background of the recruiter. If you have some common connections, maybe your brother went to the same university, or you have a friend, if they mention their fraternity or sorority, that you know someone in that sorority. You don't want to get too into it, but you kind of want to know about that person. You may not use that information in the call, but you feel a little bit of familiarity, and that's a first step toward building the bond with the person that you're interviewing with, and it's very, very important. Okay, so now let's talk about another interview process that is something that trips up a lot of people, and that is the video interview. And people, some recruiters started doing it early on because they didn't want to have to travel as much, and it was their preference. And so, when I was recruiting, I did not like to use video interviews too much because I felt like it was very one-dimensional, and I couldn't really get a measure of the person. And so before I retired from Global Search, I did a couple of searches where we had to do it virtually because of the pandemic. And I became more comfortable with the video. But let's talk about what you have to do to be successful with a video. And I posted a video on it on my YouTube site this morning. So go check that out. We do 60-second videos, and then sometimes we'll do a little bit longer, more in detail video. But today's video is about video interviewing. And there's three things you got to do. You have to worry about production, because it is TV. And people say, nah, it's not the same thing. That's just silliness. No, it's not. It's closed circuit television, and you have to be aware of what you're doing. If it's a Zoom call, that's what I use mainly, so I'm not familiar with some of the other products. I assume they have similar features. But if you don't have a good background, blur the background, okay? That's better than showing, your bed. Or a shelf full of storage stuff. I had a client once, or a candidate once, for a CEO position. She had to do the interview because they were working on her personal office in her home, her weekend home, and she did it from the laundry room. And in the background was a lot of lingerie hanging up, not the image that this very accomplished, very highly skilled, very well paid female executive wanted to share with anybody. And so it was just she and I. It wasn't being recorded, but she wasn't used to video interviews. She did not have that sense of presence, and that is extremely important. Especially, it really intensifies when you get to the video interview. So you want to have a background that's clear, that's not too cluttered. I have some clutter in my corner today. Shame on me. I came in a few minutes late. I was late getting back from the gym this morning, and came in, and my studio is in my home. That's one of the great things about being a coach, is you don't have to. We're going to probably have to go to a professional studio at some point, but right now I can work from my home because it's a pretty long days, and it's more convenient. But you have to be sensitive about what's in the background. I mean, I've had people have stuff in the background that was just appalling. I couldn't believe it. Posters that were a little bit racy. And when you're interviewing with recruiters from a Catholic health system, that's not the background you want to have. So you want to think about production values. Very important. Number one, have a good light. Don't buy some cheap, thing for $29.95, because you're going to get a $29.95 light, and you're going to have it's not going to have great even fill. You're going to have some shadows, or it's not going to be bright enough. So if you are in your 30s or 40s, look, you're going to be using this the rest of your career. So buy a good halo light. And in the video this morning, I show a picture of one of the TV personalities, an anchor commentator, who was broadcasting from her home. And she was using her Apple laptop, and it was piled up on a bunch of coffee table books so that the camera was a right level with her eyes. Now, this camera is a little bit above my eye level, and I really can't do too much about it because it's this height of the desk. And right now, I don't really want to spend several $1,000s on a new work table, a computer table, or $500 for that matter. So it's a little bit higher, and this chair won't go any higher. But you want that green light right about here. So for me, it's right about here. And I'm always kind of having to look up a little bit to look in the camera. If you've got it at eye level, it makes it easier to keep eye contact, okay? Why is that important? Because when you are talking to a recruiter on video, or the hiring manager, that camera, that little round lens and that little green light, which is what most computers use, that's their eyes. And you know what you've always been told? Look the person in the eye. So you can't do that if you're looking down or away, something else. Now, the other thing you have to understand about TV, production is really important. Camera angle is extremely important. Most people put the laptop on their desk and tilt it back, and you can see maybe the ceiling fan, maybe water spouts, certainly crown molding, and and you're doing this, you're looking up. Okay? So after my heart surgery, I lost 40-something pounds, and so now I don't have that problem. But a lot of people, when they tilt that back, when they tilt the screen back, it makes their neck and their face look fatter. Now, here's a little thing about TV and video that's not fair, but life's tough, okay? It'll add 10 pounds to the way you look, and it'll subtract 10% from your energy level. So you have to be very conscious of what you're wearing and how you present, so that you don't look, overweight. After surgery, I just started combing my hair back, and because it was easier, and it had gotten long when I was in the hospital, and I wasn't able to travel to get a haircut because the guy that cuts my hair, I've known him for years, and so I go once a month to Dallas and run errands and do the things there. It's an hour and 15-minute drive. And, I didn't get it cut. So it was about 4 or 5 months. So my hair was very long. So I was just combing it back. And I kind of, that looks okay. And people said, I like the way you cut your hair. And then I started paying attention to myself on videos. And it made me look older. And my wife kept, you see, I told you so. And so I've now gone back to just a regular push over. And as my barber said last couple of weeks ago when I was in Dallas, now you look the way you're supposed to. So you have to be mindful of how you're projecting. If you're an older person in your 40s, 45, 48, 50 years old, you are entering a zone where discrimination is going to be a factor in your career. So you don't want to make yourself look older, okay? You need to take really good care of yourself and to keep that energy level up, especially on video. So you have to artificially kind of push more on your energy level. If you're a woman and you're tilting it back, that is the most if you're tilting the laptop screen back, that is the most unflattering way to present yourself. Why would you do that? Get some coffee table books and go, what else are they for? And pile them up and get that computer. Now, I say coffee table books because they're usually pretty big and they're stable. So you want to be sure that you get enough, that you get the computer up high enough. Check your audio. And if you can elevate it a little bit, elevate it, not too much because you don't want to distort your voice, but you want to elevate it to the point that it's a real, full, confident sound. Okay, you don't want to sit way back and be diminished and then talk softly because they're going to say this person is not up for the task. He's not up for prime time. So you want to be very mindful of your production values. That halo light, the big ones that are on the stand, I think they're about $125. I'll put a link out for the ones that I think are pretty good. Amazon is a great place to buy those things. If you have a newer computer, you don't have to have an artificial green screen. On Zoom, they have virtual green screen. Now, you have to be careful if you're going to use a green screen because you don't have a good background. You have to pick a background on the green screen that's not going to allow your head to be blurred out. Now, with a lighter hair, silver is a matter of fact, or my wife says it's gray, but you can call it silver. I have to be careful against a black background because there's so much contrast that it looks like my head's smearing. Okay? Zoom has some built-in virtual backgrounds. Don't use the globe. Don't use the San Francisco Bridge unless you live in San Francisco. Take some pictures. Take your iPhone and take some pictures. Either a book, if you say you have another room but it's not conducive for an interview because it's too noisy, take a picture of the bookcase, load it up into Zoom. It's real easy. You go into virtual backgrounds, click the positive plus button, and you can load additional backgrounds in there. And use a bookcase background. So now that I have a newer iPhone, I'm going to do that for my broadcast here, so that you won't see the remnants of my gym clothes in the corner. Anyway, you want to be very mindful of your production qualities because that will get you wiped out. And the second thing you want to do is you want to be very, very conscious of your presence. Okay? One of the biggest mistakes people make is not looking at the camera. Okay? Now, I've got all these electronic gadgets I kind of have to keep my eye on, but if I just look away, it looks like I'm not looking at the recruiter. If I look down, alrighty, thank you. I understand I've got a little background distortion. And that may be from your own. Are you watching it? If you're watching it on LinkedIn or YouTube, let me know. that may be the restream. I'll watch the voice modulation here in the studio. Thank you. I appreciate it, Bola. If you have your notes, and notes are fine in job search, they're transparent, but in a video interview, you have to be very careful. So in the video this morning, we talk about that. But now I'm looking over at my notes. I'm not moving a lot, but it looks like there's something more important on my desk. Okay, thanks, Mike. It may be LinkedIn. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what I can do on this, and I will report it. Um, and hold on just a second. I'll do a reconnect here. Hopefully that made it a little bit better. You can drop me a message if it did. Um, and that's true. I'm having mic trouble this morning, and I don't think it's a studio. It's a fairly expensive studio mic, so I'm not sure. I'm not getting. If you're on LinkedIn, it may. I'm not sure about the link. Are you guys Mike Bolio? I'm sorry, I mispronounced your name. If you're on LinkedIn, it looks like that's where you're watching. Let me know. Not getting any reports on YouTube of distortion, but we'll check that out. Thank you very much. I just did a reconnect on the studio mic, but that's very important, and you want to test your mic. And I do videos all day long. And Abby, thank you. I always appreciate that. Recruiters, we meet people from all over the world with unique names and wonderful names and unique spellings, and they're great. A lot of times they're either culturally based or family based, and it's always nice that people help you with the name. So thank you, Abby, and thank you for your update on the sound quality. Thank you too. Good morning, Larry Nelson. It's great to have you with us this morning. But it's very important to pay attention and be present. So you don't want to look away. Why? Because when you're looking away, okay, that's very good. Thank you, Lori. When you look away, it looks like you're disinterested, and you don't want to do that. So here's what I recommend on video interviews. Okay, here are the cards that I use, and you tape them to either side of the camera, put it right next to the lens. They can't see that, but it's a way for you to kind of have your keynote reminders so that you can that helps you stimulate your thoughts on accomplishments or whatever that you want to really emphasize. And you can have two of these things up there, and if you write neatly, you can cover a lot of the interview issues. And it's not really a cue card, it's just a reminder. And if you prepared for the interview in advance, those reminders will really help you a lot. So that's a trick that you can use. You do not want to do a video interview with a bright light behind you, a window, or a big bright lamp, because it's going to wipe out your face. You won't be able to see facial detail with backlighting. So you want to be aware of that. The video interview is where a lot of people get eliminated. Okay, because they haven't really thought much about it, and they use the tilted screen back, which distorts their face. They're not paying very much attention to the background, and it's like anything else. It can be a distraction. What's going on behind the recruiter, that can be a distraction. If what's going on behind you can distract the recruiter. Thank you very much, Mike. I appreciate the update. YouTube is fine. So that may have been just a LinkedIn issue. We're going to be moving next week from Restream to StreamYard as a way to try to get some more features in our live stream. So hold on just a second. We're lost the stream here for a second. And so There we go. Restream has had a couple of glitches lately, and that's one of the reasons we're looking at making a change. So, really appreciate your patience. Does anybody have any questions? Happy to answer those. If you have some questions you don't want to, we don't have to. We won't call your names out if you don't want us to. But if you have you want to have a more detailed conversation about interviewing skills, I'm happy to schedule a 30-minute call with you. No sales pitch, no obligation. We can just talk about interviewing. Interviewing is where the job is won or lost. And it's also, we've got a problem in talent acquisition. The process is being dehumanized on the front end by automated candidate sourcing and automated candidate screening. And then you have the telephone interviews, and those are always challenging. So that's why I suggest you use a picture so you know who you're talking to. Now, another type of video interview that's being used by some companies is they send you a link and they send you some questions that they want you to answer. And you go to this link, and it's called HireVue, and HireVue gives you 3 shots to record an answer to the questions. A lot of people find that really hard to do because it's just not, they're not used to doing it that way. HireVue also claims to have a scanner that while they're looking at your video, scans your face and makes some conclusion about your personality or your background. I don't know, but that struck me as a little spooky. I'm not sure that they still use it, but they were promoting that at one time. There are a lot of companies out there now that are using business intelligence software to scan for candidates. Those scanners now can take thousands of candidates and distill it down to a group of about 50 in minutes, minutes, and then select the best 20 based on the algorithms that were created for that, based on the job description. So now the recruiter doesn't see you until they've narrowed it down to 20. Retained recruiters are still doing the old-fashioned way, the old process of looking at resumes. But if corporate recruiters, they're under pressure for time to hire and cost to hire. And most of them are running 5 or 6 searches at once. So, that's just more technology, more automation, more AI is on the way. It's just a fact of life. And so you can't get upset about it. You've got to learn to live with it. Now, there's also some people have really struggled with getting their resume through the scanner. There's a site that I ran across the other day called JobScan. And I think for a fee, they will they allow you to input information about the job and then allow you to scan it. You may be able to scan the job summary, and then they scan your resume and give you a rating to kind of let you know where you may need to improve. It's very, very, anytime you start using technology, AI technology, there's going to be periods where it's really spot on, and there are going to be times that it's just sketchy as hell. So there's no rhyme or reason. We looked very seriously at trying to create a program or buy into a program that would give us, a chance to screen resumes for applicants. And we found out that, it was at the time, the test that we ran with this particular vendor was about 50%. And so we just kind of thought, man, for the investment this was going to require, we weren't sure we could get that much value, deliver that much value to our clients. So what we try to do is, really just encourage the manual process of customizing your resume. One of the things we're happy to send you is something called the keyword phrase worksheet. Happy to I think it may be available on the website or on our educational site. Guiding Your Career Academy, which is available through johngself.com. I think there's that you can download it there. If you can't, let me know, and I'll be happy to email it to you. It's a free giveaway. So, but it allows you to capture all the keywords and phrases for the job, and then go through your resume, each section, to be sure that you're promulgating those keywords and phrases throughout the resume, not just in the first paragraph or the first job. Those are called keyword dumps, and you don't get a good scan score when you do that. So, well, let's see what. I don't want to keep people too long. We've been a little bit over to this morning. I hope this has been helpful information. Let me know what you would like for me to cover next week, and I'm happy to share cover other parts of the talent acquisition process and cover other elements of the recruiting process and the interviewing process. There's a lot of, if you're in healthcare, you've noticed there have been an increasing number of layoffs. And let's see. I have a couple of deals. Steam Stream, your tube stream is fine. I'm on LinkedIn. It's better. Do you have age? Do you feel that age plays a bigger role in candidate selection? Also, I'd love that the keyword list. Larry Nelson, happy to send it to you. Let me get you to just send me a. Well, hold on a second. I can take this and make a list right now. Age discrimination is rampant. Okay, I think we have a free course online that helps you kind of deal with that. And it is, but there are some, I mean, you can't, your age is your age. So here's my advice. Number one, if you're a little bit overweight, get in shape. Okay, that's really important because atmospherics affect candidate selection all the time. Right or wrong, it's a fact of life. Number two, be sure that you go in really prepared. So you're interviewing, let's say you're interviewing for a position and you're competing with a bunch of X, or say you're a late, first stage generation X. So you're in your mid 50s, later 50s. Okay, you're going to be competing with people who are, first stage millennials. So you have to compete with them, A, on knowledge, A, on technology, and A on, and you have to have an A on energy too. So you gotta bring your A game for knowledge, A game for energy level, A game for looking fit, ready to do the job, A game for interest. And you also, some of the questions that I've had people share with me, some of the recruiters for older candidates ask them technology questions, like what's brain toss, or what's HireView, or what's, all this other stuff. And they're in effect, it's discriminatory. But let me tell you, you can be discriminated against, and that's a tough court case to prove. I'm trying to figure out a way to start creating a list, and I think that's something we probably need to do. Create a list of technology that really relates to productivity and relates to that might come up in a job interview. Because that's the way some people go, oh, I got rid of that person because they really weren't up prime time. Let's see here. If you have any other questions. Let's see. Okay, thank you, Abby. Appreciate it. Thank you, Abby. I appreciate the feedback. Okay, hi, Dr. Berry. It's good to see you. Mike, thank you again. Larry Nelson, I'll get that to you. Anytime you have questions, I'm happy to take a 30-minute call and try to help you out. Our Guiding Your Career Academy, we use a lot of the career coaching, career transition companies use live coaches, and so the person who does it, there's a couple of very well-known ones in healthcare. You don't actually work with that person. That may be the person that has all the interview and networking contacts, but that's not the person that may be coaching you. So you want to find out if you need to get help in your coaching process to help you find a job, and that the research shows that will help you accelerate it if you work really hard and because the job market has changed substantially. But in our model, it is online learning augmented by weekly coaching sessions with me. And so we have like an enrollment fee and then a monthly fee. And and you stay on that until you find a job, and we stay with you until you find a job. And so there you go. That's kind of how we work. That's the only commercial I would do that. I'd love to hear more about adding qualification certifications, such as I'm a seasoned project manager. However, I don't have a PMP. Should I get one? Well, I think, I think, Abby, yes, if it's not going to be a real big expense. I do not have an MBA. I started to go get an MBA. I was traveling a lot, so that always made it difficult. And there weren't a lot of online operations back then. But because I was a Bachelor of Science in journalism, I did not have a lot of the requisite courses that you need for an MBA. It was going to take me about 2 or 3 semesters to get an MBA. To get an MBA degree, just to get the requisites to be able to get into graduate school. So I chose not to do it. And it has it hurt my career sometimes? Yes, particularly in healthcare, because they think if you don't have an MBA, you're not very smart, which is craziness. I know a lot of physicians, in order to move into executive leadership, have gone and gotten MBAs. That doesn't mean you're going to be a good leader. It just means you've gotten an MBA. And there are a lot of physician leaders that are great leaders that don't have an MBA. So, that's just part of the credential issue. But I don't know what a project manager credential, cost or how long it takes. I have had several clients in the past that were completing that training when we were working. They were able to get jobs before they finally finished their certification. So I didn't have any good anecdotal research to say it helped them find a job. I think what companies want is they want value. They're hiring what you've accomplished. And if you are an accomplished project manager and you have some good examples, that is probably going to do as much good as a PM. You can be a PM without much experience, and that probably won't help you get the job. Okay. So one of the most powerful examples that you can give in an interview, especially if you're doing turnarounds or if you're leading a department and you've gone in and you fixed it and made it better, is the before and after. That is so powerful. When I took over the project, we were we were months behind. We had discord in the team. We didn't have a unity of purpose, and I was able to do this, and this, and we finished the project on time and ahead of budget. Okay, that kind of example is really good. Abby, if you don't have to get a lot of requisite courses to get that project management degree, and it doesn't cost the earth to get it, it won't hurt, especially as you grow in your career. Having that credential is very, very important. In healthcare, we have something called the American College of Healthcare Executives, and having fellowship status, a lot of recruiters look for that. Now, I know some fellows that couldn't run anything, much less a hospital. And I met some hospital executives that weren't in the college and didn't have fellowship who were terrific. Okay. But some industries are very, very oriented toward having those credentials. Healthcare, because we collaborate and work with doctors are very much about credentials and certifications and members of the college and board certification. Well, that's why ACHE years and years ago started looking at creating that kind of fellowship. And it used to be really hard to get because you had to have been so long. You first got a CHE, and then you went through 2 or 3 more years and wrote a bunch of papers and had oral exams. It was almost like the physicians have to go through. And now it's you pass a governing board exam, and you pay the money and you get your fellowship. So it's kind of been degraded a little bit, unfortunately. Abby, you're welcome. Hope you do well with that. I hope you guys will come back next week, Thursday mornings. I'm going to try to come up with some more topics for you. One of the things we're doing with our coaching group is we're going to be doing live meetups starting in June. So people who are involved in either taking all of our courses or some of our courses will have a chance to join those meetups. I think it's probably going to be on Facebook. We just created a new group on LinkedIn called Guiding Your Career. LinkedIn is a little bit more difficult to use. On some of the video to groups, so we're still trying to evaluate which platform we're going to use. A lot of people I know, a lot of the groups I'm in are over on Facebook for their meetups. So we'll just kind of doing the research on that. If anybody has any suggestions, I'm happy to take it in. Listen, thank you all for joining me today. I really appreciate it, and I hope that the information has been helpful. And again, give me your feedback. If you thought I was not clear on something, with the technical problems, I got a little distracted, and that happens in interviews. So guilty as charged. So I hope this has been helpful. Thank you so much for joining us. and I'll see you next Thursday morning for Career Live Coffee.